Chapter 427, Return to East Region Saint City. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Seek-Sing-Kong took out a half-meter-long metal cylinder and instilled it with genuine chi. A few bright inscriptions emerged on the surface of the metal cylinder and rushed toward its bottom. Swoosh! A beam of white light flashed out of the metal cylinder, ascended from the ground, then rushed straight into the clouds. Typically, once a warrior sent a signal, the Ministry of Warships would arrive in an hour to pick him or her up and go to the battlefield of the primitive world. Zhang Yuochen sneakily put the yin-yang wooden map into the chi-si between his eyes. Although Zhang Yuochen believed in Huang Yanchen, Seek-Sing-Kong, and Chang Kiki, he still had to be careful. Some huge secrets should be kept to oneself. Once exposed, it would be treacherous toward Zhang Yuochen and the people who had been informed about it. Zhang Yuochen closed his eyes and released his spiritual power. He clearly felt that the spiritual chi between heaven and earth was weakening. The whole five elements primitive world seemed to be gradually disappearing. The yin-yang wooden map has absorbed the wood spirit's chi of origin of the five elements primitive world. I am afraid that in 100 years, the five elements primitive world will become a dead world. The loss of the chi of origin of the wood spirit would not lead to the immediate disappearance of the five elements primitive world. A long process would eventually lead to its extinction. First, the flowers and trees would wither and vanish completely. Then, the environment would spoil, causing the human beings and savage beasts to starve until they were completely extinct. In the end, the five elements primitive world would become completely desolate. Unless perhaps some creatures not reliant on the chi of origin of the wood nature survived, such as the creatures of rock, metal, water, and fire. Zhang Yuochen obviously did not want to see such a situation happen, since it involved the living creatures of the whole world. Maybe he would not kill them, yet he would still be the cause of their deaths. The saints of Kunlun's field will certainly perceive the anomalies of the five elements primitive world. With the strong cultivation of the saints, they should be able to forcefully change the chi of origin so that the creatures of the five elements primitive world can continue to survive. The First Central Empire was only trying to rule the five elements primitive world, not ruin it. So they would surely find ways to make up for the lack of the chi of origin of the wood spirit. Moreover, after many years, the five elements primitive world would produce a new chi of origin of wood spirit by itself. After all, the five elements were complementary to each other, existing in a large cycle. However, it took at least hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions, to cultivate the chi of origin of the wood spirit depending on the natural rules. By the time this could happen, the living creatures of the five elements primitive world would be extinct. Only the saints were capable of using their great powers to speed up the production of chi of origin of the wood spirit so that the spiritual chi of the five elements primitive world would not erode. Ni Wenlong, a master on the heaven board of the Saint Academy, actually appeared in five elements primitive world. It must be something coming up from Saint Xigentry. I must inform the Saint Academy of this matter so that they will look into it, Huang Yanchen said with a cold voice. Huang Yanchen had frozen Ni Wenlong's body in thick ice as evidence to bring back to the Saint Academy to identify the mastermind supporting him. Everyone knew that Ni Wenlong's visit to the five elements primitive world was to murder Zhang Yuochen. However, Zhang Yuochen was far stronger than he had imagined. Therefore, Zhang Yuochen slew him. Only a half-saint could send a master on the heaven board to the five elements primitive world. It gave everybody a chill to think that a half-saint from the Saint Academy actually wanted to kill Zhang Yuochen. Seek-Sing-Kong said seriously, maybe it is really Saint Xigentry who ordered Ni Wenlong to assassinate Zhang Yuochen, but surely they will have prepared for the worst. Therefore, investigating this matter might be of no avail. Zhang Yuochen nodded and said, this matter involves the powerful Saint Families, which means all of you better not get involved in it. Besides, even if I took Ni Wenlong's body to the Saint Academy, nothing could be done to Saint Xigentry. We might even rouse suspicion. Bang! Zhang Yuochen walked toward Ni Wenlong's body. He smashed the frozen body with his palm, crushing it into fine powder. Huang Yanchen had intended to stop him, but it was too late. Zhang Yuochen did not want Huang Yanchen involved in this matter. She may have had great influence behind her, giving her no reason to fear the Saint Exugentry. Yet Zhang Yuochen was worried that the Saint Exugentry would take her down stealthily. If that happened, they would be caught off guard, which would certainly be nothing but bad for her. Zhang Yuochen decided to deal with the Saint Exugentry patiently. After about 15 minutes, a huge metal warship, more than 130 meters long, flew down from the sky and stopped above everyone's head. Demi Saint Lingxiu, dressed in red clothes and carrying a holy sword, flew down from the top of the warship and smiled. Zhang Rukan, congratulations. You became a warrior on the heaven board after the first time you entered the battlefield of the primitive world. You also possessed the highest military merits in the third round of the assessment. I definitely did not judge you wrongly. By killing Master Shenhai, Zhang Yuochen would receive 10,000 military merits, which was sufficient to vault him onto the heaven board. I seek for your audience, Half-Saint Huang Yanzhen, Seek Sinkong, and Chang Kiki all respectfully paid homage to the Demi Saint Lingxiu to show their respect. Zhang Yuochen held his fists in both hands and he saluted Demi Saint Lingxiu. He said, entering the heaven board is nothing, the road ahead is still a rather far journey. Their warriors of the heaven realm must compete in the battlefield of primitive world for a few years, or even decades, to accumulate 10,000 military merits and be on the heaven board. Zhang Yuochen only needed 1 month. However, Zhang Yuochen's goal was to accumulate 30 million military merits to pursue the ultimate realm of the heaven realm. 10,000 was just a baby step for him. Demi Saint Lingxiu said, stop being humble. Everybody knows that you are nothing less than extraordinary and that your potential is astonishing. You even managed to destroy the evil wood palace. Your achievement is something that the other students could not do. Of course, in this batch of students, besides you, another person actually accumulated 10,000 military merits and entered the heaven board. Zhang Yuochen asked with curiosity, who? Demi Saint Lingxiu said, she is also a student of Omen Ridge, named Duan Muxingling. It's her. Although Zhang Yuochen's face was rather surprised, in fact, he was not surprised at all. Zhang Yuochen, Duan Muxingling, Liu Shuaihan were all the 6 great kings of the new generation. Zhang Yuochen definitely had his trump card, which was destroying a monk of the fish dragon realm. But Duan Muxingling and Liu Shuaihan definitely had the same trump card as well. The difference was that Liu Shuaihan's character was gentle, quiet, and ethereal. She did not like killing, and she would certainly not perform genocide on indigenous creatures. She would stop after accumulating enough military merits. On top of that, the other person who had the ability to accumulate 10,000 points military merits was Duan Muxingling. Zhang Yuochen said, Your Excellency, I have received a savage beast in the 5 elements primitive world, and I would like to bring it back Kunlun's field. Demi Saint Lingxiu looked at the monster ape and said, it's just a trivial matter. Let me bring it back to the Saint Academy for you. Also, you don't need to address me as Your Excellency or Half-Saint anymore, as someone might think that I was your senior sister apprentice upon returning to the Saint Academy. From today onwards, we are on the same boat. Zhang Yuochen forced a smile. He did not want to worship Elder Xuanji as his master, but since Demi Saint Lingxiu actually came out with this statement, it meant that Elder Xuanji regarded him highly. If he continued to refuse, he would be too defiant. Of course, to worship Elder Xuanji as a master was also a good thing. For Zhang Yuochen, the benefits outweighed the disadvantages. Led by Demi Saint Lingxiu, everyone got onto the warship and set sail to the primitive world of the 5 elements. They waited for another day to depart for the primitive world. The students who came to the appraisal were taken over one after another. Then the students took a warship and returned to Myriad Chaos Mountain through the primitive world. More than 35,000 students went to the 5 elements primitive world for the 3rd round assessment, but only around 30,000 students actually made it back. The remaining 5,000 talented students had lost their lives in the assessment. Most of them had been eaten by the savage beasts. In the 5 elements primitive world, the savage beasts were much stronger than humans. The humans only occupied a small territory, unable to compete with the savage beasts. They only survived in the shadows and crevices. The third round of assessment only had 14,378 people. They accumulated hundreds of military merits and became saints of the Saint Academy. The others were eliminated. After a brief wait at the Myriad Chaos Mountain, everybody returned to the East Region Saint City and went back to the Saint Academy. All the students who had become saints were overjoyed. After they had received certificates and robes, they went in groups to celebrate. Being a saint was an incomparable glory, and the future was much assured. Those students who did not enter the Saint Academy were rather sad, but they were not discouraged. Since they failed to make it into the Saint Academy, they could just apply for other colleges and martial clubs, or even the Ministry of War. The 7th District had more than just a Saint Academy. It had many colleges, such as the Royal Academy, which was established by the First Central Imperial Court. Although it had a rather shorter history than the Saint Academy, they still had half-saints and saints as instructors. In some aspects, it even surpassed the Saint Academy. Moreover, students of the Royal Academy also had the opportunity to enter the Imperial Court in the future, to seal the official crown and become a vassal. Many genius descendants from the Juns of the East Region Saint Mansion practiced in the Royal Academy. They were preparing themselves to be part of the Imperial Court in the future. In addition, the great Saint Powerful for Miles also set up martial clubs in 7th District to recruit elites from around the world. Although these martial clubs were not quite as good as the Saint Academy and Royal Academy, they were also good choices for training. Zhang Yuochen did not participate in Huang Yanjin's celebration banquet. He took the saint's robe and certificate, along with his monster ape, left the Saint Academy, and returned to the courier station of the martial market. Zhang Yuochen spoke with his mother briefly and then entered the internal space of the time and space spinal. He continued to study the yin-yang wooden map. He needed to study the secrets of yin-yang wooden map, as it would provide great help to his practice.